Some big news from the world of AI today. First of all, we have an AI model that is able to upscale and restore images really, really well. Better than whatever this was. It can take decade-old video games and give them a brand new look, high resolution, without losing the original qualities of it. It also does some pretty hilarious stuff. Like, for example, every once in a while, people in the crowd will be stripped completely naked. They would just lose their clothes. And also it has this tendency to hide these like severed heads in random places around the image. We'll leave that one till the very end because some of it is a little bit salacious. How about that? Next, if you've ever learned any of the TikTok dances, you've wasted your time. That's not related to any of this. You've just wasted your time. But also, this AI can make you do any dance that you want. You give it a reference image, a photo of yourself or anyone else, and a reference dance, and it'll make that photo dance or run or move or whatever. Here's the Mona Lisa running, for example. This is a Spanish model. Her name is Aitana. She's 25. She makes $11,000 every month advertising in her Instagram account, amongst a few other accounts. But Aitana is not real. She's 100% AI generated. 2024 will be wild. And on the flip side of that, where AI takes real things and tries to replicate them in a digital space, we have someone in AI that wanted to stay in the digital space, but gets dragged against his will into the real world. Here's a post by Forbes that is related to AI and Beff Jezos. No, not Jeff Bezos, Beff Jezos. So this post had 1.1 million views and it was not very well received. People are saying, y'all are disgusting. Reported. Yeah, basically everybody in those comments are yelling at Forbes saying, shame, shame, just like that Game of Thrones scene. Why? Well, they doxed somebody. So this person had a pseudonym, a fake online name. He went by Beff Jezos, and he was sort of the unofficial leader of the EAC movement, the effective acceleration movement. Basically people that wanted for AI to be developed quickly, to be more open sourced, people that were kind of saying accelerate AI development because that will be better for the world. So Forbes doxed him. They published his personal details that he didn't want shared. And it sounds like they've used some sort of CIA voice matching technology to find him. We'll see if that's true or not, but some strange things are surrounding this event. Also, we have GTA 6, the trailer coming out, the much awaited new installment in the Grand Theft Auto series. Sounds like it's not going to be here till 2025. So that's unfortunate. And here's my prediction. I think this will be the last AAA game made without AI that will not rely on AI to do some of the heavy lifting or to add some mechanics to the game world. So for people that are not familiar with this, so EAC, so this E/ACC is for effective acceleration. It's people that, or excuse me, I guess it's effective accelerationism. I always drop the last part. And so at its core, EAC argues that technology companies should innovate faster with less opposition from decels or decelerationist, folks like AI safety advocates and regulators who want to slow the growth of technology. It's similar to what Facebook used to say, move fast and break things. And so it sounds like the person behind this account, behind Beff Jezos, that's his real name, so he goes by Gil. And so Forbes first identified Gil Verdon as Jezos by matching details that Jezos revealed about himself to publicly available facts about Verdon. A voice analysis conducted by Catalin Grigoras, director of the National Center for Media Forensics, compared audio recordings of Jezos and talks given by Verdon, and Forbes is revealing his identity because we believe it to be in the public interest as Jezos' influence grows. I'm going to post a little poll after this because I'm really curious what the people watching this channel think about something like this. So this is Forbes, a large kind of long-standing media publisher, has been around for a while. The name's synonymous with sort of like wealth, the Forbes list. And they go to pretty great lengths to out this person, who, by the way, has conducted interviews with them. So he agreed to meet. He agreed to talk to them as himself, as the real person, as Gil. And so the director of the National Center for Media Forensics, so I guess it's a government-funded organization, and Catalin Grigoras, who is the director, I guess, of that center, this is the same person that worked with the Department of Justice, and it looks like they're receiving funding from the government, total funding $500,000 to date. Anyways, I'm going to leave a post. I'm curious what you think. Is this okay? Is this cool? Does this give you really eerie vibes that that you sort of have these media channels working with, I guess, somewhat academic organizations that are funded by the government that use these kind of like technologies to find and dox people whose ideas they don't agree with, I guess. It's a bit strange, right? To me, it seems like that story is a little bit strange. Now, whatever the case, this thing kind of backfired. I'll show you a quick piece from an interview with Beff Jezos, about kind of what happened and what his thoughts on it are.
It definitely feels weird. It definitely feels very weird. It's been kind of a compartmentalized part of my life. Felt like a video game on my phone, more or less, right? Like having an alternative Twitter and having a very professional life day to day. You would never guess that I'm Beff from just like day-to-day interactions, frankly. And it's been a very surprising reaction. I guess not that surprising. I guess tech Twitter kind of hates the establishment media at this point, and came to my defense, which felt quite good. I mean, there was a couple instances where there's reporters that think they have my docs, and I'm just like, you can't dox people. I do not want you to do this. And usually that kind of kills the story to some extent, but it's kind of been, I've been in the SF social scene in person. I know a bunch of investors, for example, some of them know, some of them have correlated the two. But obviously I spent a bunch of time in Twitter spaces. I have some online lectures from my days in grad school in quantum computing. And really that's basically what they've correlated. They use some, I don't know, I call it CIA technology as a joke, but, they use some government grade technology to identify my voice, just because I have a 50K follower account that speaks truth to power. I guess it tells you that, we're doing something right, and that some people in the establishment, want to have leverage over the leader of the grassroots movement that, is for freedom and against top-down control, which is very scary. Yeah, there's an unwritten rule of like you don't like talk to reporters, you don't share people's docs without their consent. I'm sure some people broke that rule, but I don't know what drove them to really break the story now. I think there were some latent variables there, and I was like, all right, I got to get in front of this. Right, again, I've been doing this deep tech startup for nearly a year and a half, and as the bio says, I come from Google X. We're taught to be very secretive about what we do, because in deep tech, that's kind of the MO. And we want to be secretive for longer, but for all sorts of reasons, including national security interest reasons, right? Like our technology is pretty out there. And it kind of forced our hand, right? Like it correlated all identities. And also it also kind of doxed the fact that I had founded the startup, because I hadn't identified that on my main account. So what I ended up doing, getting on the phone, getting in front of the story. I already knew exactly, like that's the thing with reporters, like they're so low entropy. They are all in the same typical subspace of stories. You can predict exactly what they're going to write just from the prior that they're trying to get you. And so I just disarmed every typical attack they would try to do on EAC, trying to have second or third order guilt by association to some idea that's a derivative of another idea, and neutralize that essentially entirely. Yeah, definitely not planned. But at the same time, it was always sort of a trap, right? In game theory, you want to make it like you want to make sure that like the incentive was to not dox me, right? For most people, because they knew that if they did dox me, now I could go on these podcasts with my real face, with my credentials. I could talk to potentially politicians, and I have credentials that have some firepower, and now I'm more of a problem. So they kind of messed up. It's their fault, really. It was a trap to some extent, but I tried my best to stay in on.
This person has a fairly impressive background. So physics and AI research and development, past Alphabet X, which is their sort of like special projects. AI was part of that. Google, PhD, looks like he's got a background on Google Scholar with a lot of works. And now he's raising a lot of money for his AI company, Xtropic. Anyways, whatever the case is, we'll probably hear more and more about this. It sounds like this kind of mobilized a lot more people for the effective acceleration as a movement, kind of pushed it out there. Is that what they were trying to do? Or were they trying to do the exact opposite? Or they don't care, they're just trying to get clicks? I have no idea. But it's an interesting, strange kind of piece of news that stuck out to me that this is happening. But moving right along, we have MagicAnimate, where you can make any picture do any sort of dance that you want. And it's very, very consistent, temporal consistency as they're calling. So between the different frames, it's coherent. It makes sense from frame to frame, and our brain picks it up as real movement. Here they have a little demo where you can drag various images and make them do a dance. So for example, Mona Lisa running. Now, while that doesn't really look like the Mona Lisa, I gotta say the running is excellent. This is the next example. Here's a dance that she's doing. It looks like they generate about 4 seconds of this dance. So here's a different model doing that dance. So it looks a little bit, not 100% real, but boy, it's close. And finally, we have this Magnific. So this is a paid tool where you can pay to scale up old images or blurry images. You can either increase how high resolution they are, or you can add certain details. And it's pretty good, but as I've said before, it has some weirdness here and there. So for example, here's an image from a game from 1993, I believe. This was like on the package of the game, Doom. As I slide this across, as you can see here, so it's creating a lot more detail. So notice his helmet and his eyes are much more detailed. There's numbers on the helmet. His hands are a lot more detailed. A tattoo appears here, torn cloth. These little monsters over here, their faces are more detailed, sharper. You can see the teeth a lot better, the tongue, and etc. The person in the background is a lot more detailed. You can see a lot more on that model. And of course, the face of this demon here is sharper, more detailed. Now, if we crank up the creativity and lower the resemblance, like really kind of like take it to not the maximum, but really take it up there, here's kind of where that goes. So I'm not sure if I love it, but it's definitely interesting. So it made all of them into these wire demons. The guy itself has a face on his arm, for example, and his right arm, his left arm, I guess that is, gets turned into like a camera almost. It's bizarre. The guy in the background turns into a skeleton-like thing. And then here a face appears, which, by the way, as you'll notice, this thing will randomly add faces in the weirdest places, like on this guy's arm. So if we take it down a notch, here's what that's going to look like. So as you can see here, it's much closer to the original, but definitely a lot more detail, more wires, more glowy things. And notice the sky. Oh, well, notice the marine, first of all, in the foreground, definitely a lot better. Still, you got some like yelling faces over here, which is a little bit weird, but definitely great detail. A lot more happening there. The guy's looking at you now. And notice the sky in the background is beautiful. It has stars. It looks like the Milky Way. And so everything's much, much sharper and crisper and better. All right, next. So I'm not sure if you've seen this image before. So this is a fresca. This was called the Ecce Homo, Behold the Man. And, you know, over the years, it received some damage, right? It just quite wasn't like its original self. So you had various people attempt to replicate it. And this was one of the attempts that just completely butchered it. It was absolutely horrible. I think this was voted the worst art restoration of all time. It was voted as being that. So I was wondering, can this AI do a better job of restoring this? So let's take a look. So this is the original. I said not too much creativity, but just kind of like make it better. And so I got to say, so that's pretty good, but still kind of all the cloth imprints and stuff like that is still there. So maybe it's a little bit better, but let's see what happens if we really crank it up. So here's, again, with creativity settings really ramped up and saying it doesn't have to look like the original. It goes to something like this, which is interesting, right? Because it kind of mimics where the image is looking, kind of like the layout. But to me, it's almost more feminine. It's hard to tell. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I mean, like the beard is gone. And now there's flowers and stuff like that in the hair. And this is much more like decorative, and you got the gold and stuff like that. So definitely, I mean, Ecce Homo is Jesus going to the cross. So this is supposed to be the crown of thorns, the bleeding. That's kind of what this is depicting. So when you just tell it, get creative and change it, it does this, not knowing kind of what it's supposed to be. In this one, so I explained it to, in the prompt, I said what it's supposed to be. And this is what happened. So it does this, which to me is a lot closer, obviously, to the original. You see the crown of thorns, you see the blood. And here I can't really tell what is on the neck here. So it kind of translates that as, I'm not even too sure what that is, right? But it's close to what the original one was. And so this red tunic is also close to the original. The hair, yeah, I mean, and this little scroll of paper, right? It kind of captures that, just makes it much more high detailed. And instead of these, whatever that artifact from the scroll or whatever, it looks a lot better. One minor detail that unfortunately kind of ruins it for me is this. It kind of sees another face kind of on the tunic. And so you'll see this a lot. This is kind of a reoccurring theme with this video. It kind of thinks there are faces somewhere and just kind of like turns it into a real face. So who knows? But overall, I feel like it's definitely interesting. Whatever else you can say, it's interesting that it's able to kind of reimagine certain things. Here's a super pixelated image from a video game. And so it does this, which it's better, but still super pixelated. Here's an attempt, but telling it to get a little bit more creative and not worry about being as close. So it's got the hands here, etc. Here's Lara Croft from a 90s video game. And so boom, it changes into that. But here we use kind of arts and illustration. And here, so here we're saying 3D rendering creativity 6. So that's pretty high up there. 4 on the HDR. So that's kind of midway resemblance, and try to keep it the same. And so this is what it does. So I got to say that's pretty incredible because number one, notice the background is very similar. So the background doesn't change too much, but the weird blocky shapes that are visible in this image, the weird blocky shapes are kind of made to be more lifelike, and just overall really captures what this is supposed to be while retaining the background, although a lot more greenery here and kind of like some grassy areas, they're not visible here. Here's a picture from Baldur's Gate, one of the companions. Here's how it reimagines her. So much more lifelike, much more realistic, but maybe not really the same person, but definitely much more realistic. And the hair is similar, but it's missing the little ties or whatever. So here's a picture of myself this is La Jolla, San Diego. So let me see what it would do here. And that is horrible to me, but let's keep going. So I don't know. This whole thing is so bizarre to me. Like, it changed my face in so many different ways. I hate it. But the background is super clear, super high definition. It looks like it added some buildings here. There's no buildings, that's just cliffs. Kind of got confused about this balcony here, but here's where it gets a little bit weird. So down here is you have my arm on the right-hand side, and you have kind of this just bush. Take a look at what it does. And you see this kind of bushy area? Boom, sticks a severed head in the bushy area. Why? I don't know, but it's very disturbing. The reason I'm using so many screenshots from old games is just, it's really interesting to see what those would look like. So here's Alex from Half-Life something. And so that's how it gets changed, which so many things that are so well done about this, from the textures in the background to the clothes, to the pants, to what they're doing with their hand. I mean, terrific. The only problem is I don't think like the face changes so much. Like, it's not, you would never have guessed that that's the same person. So I tried a different approach here with less creativity, and it's still, so I'm not sure what the deal with the faces, because it seems like it maybe doesn't have too many different faces that I can use. But I gotta say, if this was done better, everything else is just phenomenal, I would say. So I create a lot of mid-journey images, and that's a great sort of art generator, image generator. And so I was curious to see what happens if we throw those in here and try to upscale them a little bit. So here's one that I've used for one of the thumbnails. So this is how it kind of reimagines it. So definitely much more detailed and better in a lot of ways, while still kind of capturing all of the sort of art style of the original. So kind of cool. I like it. Next, we have this image generated with Midjourney. So it's kind of like a Renaissance Da Vinci style portrait, but of the Joker. So what it does here is it upscales it. And I gotta say, I love a lot about this. I love what it did here. Definitely a lot more precise, more sort of reflection right there in the eye. Love it. Next, we have the Mona Lisa. This with a little bit more creativity. So it definitely changes the face to be, I would say, very different. And we'll try it again with less creativity. But I mean, I like it, but it's definitely really changes the face. And notice what happens here with the arms. It's turned into weird faces again, but they're fitting sort of the rest of the style of this thing. But my God, that is bizarre. All right. And so this is the same picture with less, so 0 creativity and 7 resemblance. So we're asking me to be less creative and more like the original. So this is what it did here. And I gotta say, I mean, this is a lot closer to the original, just with more vivid colors, some reds here, much closer, I gotta say. And then the arms, whatever was happening, the other one disappears. This finger's a little bit weird, but much closer. So I gotta say, this is pretty cool. Here's another image from Midjourney. As you can see here, definitely brings out the eyes, the shadows, and everything else. And really impressive, much better hair, etc. Here's a first-person shooter in a style of a Van Gogh, created in Midjourney. So as I'm scrolling, notice how much more vivid and clear and upscaled everything is. That person is now much more visible. The sun is much more, or whatever that is, popping. And then so this sort of first-person gun sticking out is much more detailed. So very cool, very impressive. I think this hut is better. So the creator of the software also talked a little bit about how to really create better images with it. So here we're taking a 90s game screenshot and we're running through once like that. So this is what we're getting out. And then we're taking that image. So I've downloaded it, re-uploaded it, and we're running it with creativity of 1, a resemblance of -1, just to, so we're basically taking that output and we're running it through again. And so this is what happens there. So that to me is a lot better. So it seems like running it through multiple times definitely creates some interesting additions. Here's the Tesla Cybertruck with more creativity and more details. So as you can see here, it changed the wheels and the handles and just added a lot more clarity and everything else to it. So here's a picture of me. It doesn't, I don't know. So without too much creativity, I mean, yeah, it makes it a little bit better, but it also adds some weirdness to it. And then if you keep bumping the creativity up, eventually just changes you into a different person. This is really weird for me to look at. Because I mean, yes, it's close, but at the same time, not at all. Now here's Sam Altman. It does something weird to Sam Altman's face. I don't know why. So it adds like a lot of freckles. And it takes all these little lights in the background and just changes them into lemons or citrus fruit of some sort. I love what it does here with the eyes because it definitely like brings them out and makes them more well lit. But no matter how I changed it, I couldn't get away from it adding a bunch of freckles. I don't know why. It just, for some reason, thought Sam Altman equals freckles. In the previous house I used to live in, there was this crow that used to mess with me. I don't know why. I took a picture of it. It would follow me around. It would be outside, but it would like find where I am in the house and sit outside of that window. It was bizarre. So I upscaled this and turned it into that, which is even creepier. But I'm not sure if that's a crow or a raven anymore. It's more bluish. This looks more like a what? Like a parakeet. The eyes and the beak have changed to where it's less like a crow or a raven, whatever those things are, and more like this beak is for a different bird. I don't know. Here's a very cool one. So this is testing of an atomic bomb way back in the days. So you can't really see too much detail here. And as we do this, boom, it's really upscaled. So as you can see here, we can really see the plumes, the mushroom cloud, much more detailed. All of these little ships and things floating on the water are upscaled. All these little palm trees and huts are upscaled. Very cool. Here's another interesting one that I think shows what this thing can do. So this is Abe Lincoln in 1819 something. I don't know. But so it's super blurry. But as we go over it, you see the face changes and it does not look like him anymore. But if we add in the prompt that this is Abe Lincoln and we give him some context, I feel like that's much better, right? I feel like that's a lot closer to what it's supposed to be. And then if we take this image and we run it through one more time, and I think I ran through it a third time. And so this is the final output, and that's looking pretty good. All right, so this is the screenshot from the GTA trailer. So let me roll that. So it changed a lot of things. I don't know if you can tell. So first of all, this lady down here gets stripped naked, and this lady down here also. So it does that. Then it turns this helicopter into a bird or a flock of birds. These two get changed a lot. The chihuahua disappears. This bottom left area seems to be pretty good. It's kind of captures that, makes it more realistic. Like I don't see too much completely breaking down here. So I tried this with a lot of different settings, and the people in the bottom right just constantly, the same thing happens. I don't know why, but the rest seems pretty good. And this is another one, and this is another one, but yeah, not too much is changing. So here's another screenshot from GTA. It seems like it changes quite a few things. I mean, here, these people are completely changed. They're totally different. Another situation here where they're completely different, doing different things, dressed in different ways. So this car goes from like one of those supercars into an old school classic American car, I think, right? So people have done a lot of different things with it. So for example, this is Warcraft that's been run through it. So much more sharp and detailed before and after. Here's the before, here's the after, here's the before, here's the after. This is some video games reimagined. Shrek upscaled. That's interesting. Oh boy, it looks like there's a mouth on his nose. It tends to do that. Jacked Santa. Yeah, here's another one of a Renaissance painting. So they swipe through it, and yeah, it's same, but different. Which anyways, I feel like it's a pretty useful piece of software. You just gotta, there's a bit of a learning curve. You gotta figure out how to get the outputs that you want, but there's a lot of power there. And I think a lot of people are going to use it for business, for generating images. Like if you're doing food advertising, running it through there, I feel like would be excellent to make it look more appealing without having necessarily to capture that shot. Anything from Midjourney, if you want to tweak it a little bit or add some finer textures, that would be great for it. But it's also pretty hilarious in certain spots. I can't wait for the first person to not notice some detail that was missed, like somebody being naked in the background or a severed head stuck in a bush somewhere, and just, post it on their brand page. Because that's going to happen at some point. I hope it is going to happen at some point. But either way, what do you think about Forbes? Are they doing it because they feel it's in the interest of the public? Or do you think there's something shady going on? Or do you think it's just a publication trying to get clicks and there's nothing too exciting one way or another? It's just nonsense drama. I'm curious to know. Thank you for watching this far. My name is Wes Roth, and I'll see you next time.